Hello everybody, John here, and today on To The Garage I'm sharing with you something that I've been thinking about sharing since Christmas but just haven't got round to it. We looked at making the diagnostic tool for the Jaguar XK8, which is a little switchable relay enabling you to test all sorts of circuits. I have another item that I bought as a completed item that is equally a great diagnostic tool for any car. And these two items I needed to share with you before I moved on to another project, which is to build the perfect toolkit for my car with all of the spanners and tools and gadgets that I might need while I'm out and about, but also a few spares and little diagnostic tools. So what I'm going to share with you today is switchable, resettable, trippable car fuses. How they can be used, how useful they are, and why you need some in your life. So we'll start off with a little experiment I've set up down here to show you. I'm not trying to teach anybody to suck eggs, but I am going to assume that everybody's a beginner at this sort of stuff. So I'm going to take you through step by step how everything works and why these are useful things. Come join. Okay everybody, so here is my setup. I have a positive lead coming straight from the positive terminal of a battery. That then goes through a fuse holder. That then goes down this lead to this fluorescent strip light here, which is from Olive, the T2 transporter incidentally. Then it comes back out of the strip light and goes to this lead, which goes straight to the negative or earth terminal of the battery. So very simple circuit. At the moment, although this is switched on, nothing's happening, and that's because there's a gap in the circuit here. This is not connected to this. There's a missing link, and the missing link is a fuse. And this is very typical of automotive fuses. Certainly from mid-80s onwards, there are all sorts of varieties, smaller and larger. You also do get earlier cars with little ceramic fuses with a little bit of wire wrapped around. Let me just open up my little box. Here is a fuse from the early 80s. This is one of the Volkswagen Transporter's fuses. So we've got a little insulative piece of yellow material. These used to be ceramic, they're plastic these days. With a bit of wire wrapped around it, and the wire has a very thin section. And it's calibrated so that that little thin section will melt at a particular number of amps when the current running through it is too much. It's like when there's too much, the water running through it, if it was plumbing, is running too fast. That will burst, it will melt. And this one is a 5, I don't know if you can see that, 5 amp fuse, which means that little section, the thin section, will melt when it exceeds 5 amps. You've got, this is UK obviously, but this is a domestic fuse for a 3-pin plug, metal cap, insulative tube. Inside there's a piece of wire, melts at 5 amps. If you're into your hi-fi, you'll see all sorts of really big fuses, but they're variants on this style. Glass tube, metal cap both ends, a little bit of wire inside, but it's calibrated to melt if the current exceeds 35 amps, if there's too much current rushing through it. And that's to protect our circuits. But by far the most common variety of fuse, and certainly if you're into Jags like me, you're going to have loads of these blade fuses in your car. They're good because they're easy to install. They go into a very standard socket. You can use female spade connectors if you really want to, and you can very easily see the fusible link, that little bit of wire there. So this and this are connected by that Z-shaped or Z-shaped piece of wire, and it's calibrated to melt if the ampage exceeds 5 amps. Okay, so that's what we mean by a fuse. And I'm going to put the fuse into my fuse holder here. And you can see the lamp was turned on, and now I've completed that circuit. So positive coming from the battery, through the fusible link, through this wire to the light, back out of the light, through the crocodile clip to the earth on the battery. And that's fine. And this is only 8 watts, so it isn't creating much current. There's not a lot of flow of electricity needed to run this circuit. So what's happening is there's 1 and a bit amps maybe running through this fusible link. It won't even be getting warm. But fusible links are there for a purpose, to protect us when things go wrong in our car. So here is some dodgy wiring, the sort of thing that lots of us will have in our cars. Let's imagine for a moment that this dodgy wiring been installed by somebody else, obviously not by us, once upon a time to run a stereo, and it's been pushed into that side of the fuse connector. It could be connected here, it could be connected anywhere, if I'm honest. And that bare spade terminal is dangling underneath our dashboard. If that comes into contact with anything that goes back to the battery, like earth, anything metal, then what's going to happen is, rather than this delicate little light pulling an amp or so, we'll have what's called a short circuit. The electricity will choose to go down the fastest possible route back to earth or the battery, and in doing so creates this short loop where it tries to maximize how fast it gets there, because there's no little device where it's wired up to anymore. It can take a shortcut. So imagine what happens if this is wagging around underneath our dashboard, we go over a few bumps, and eventually it's gonna touch something metal, or in this case this crocodile clip. So I'm going to do that right now. Oh my god. Oh, there it went. The light's gone off. You heard a tiny little pop. You may have even seen a tiny flash of light. I'll have to watch back on a video myself to find out. But that's gone. The light doesn't work. The fuse has gone. So we pull our little fuse out, 5 amp fuse, and that, there we go, that Z or Z shaped piece of wire has really clearly popped. That's why these fuses are good. You can always see the pop. Sometimes when you're using the glass tube ones, it pops near one of the end caps and you can't see it. So, dead fuse. Can't be reused. If you want to know if the fuse works, you can use these 2 little tabs here when it's out of the fuse box to check continuity. There should be a connection between that one and that one. If there's not, you know, the fuse has gone. Or obviously you can pull it out and see if there's continuity between that one and that one. So this is gone. Let's say headlights no longer work. We don't know why it's blown. There's a real temptation to just change the fuse. Maybe it was a little glitch. Maybe the fuse was a bit dicey. I'll put another fuse in. So we change our fuse, we pop it back in. Maybe it works, but probably it's going to instantly go pop again because this wire's still touching metal. And then you've got to go and find your fault. and you think you find your fault and you fix something, you put another fuse in, pop, because you didn't find this yet. And you carry on, keep changing fuses until you think you found a fault. There are easy ways of doing it, but then you need a multimeter and you maybe need a little bit more knowledge. That's the way most people solve their problems. Of course, the problem is if you're at the side of the road, you've only got so many fuses. You very quickly run out of fuses. This is where I'm going to introduce you to a fabulous toy. This is a 5 amp resettable fuse. If you think about the circuit breakers you have in your house, this is not the same, but the effect to the layman is the same anyway, in that if something goes wrong, you don't have to change the fuse in your house. You press a little button and reset it. And if the fault's still there, it pops and it won't reset. If the fault's gone away, you can reset it. That's what this is. This is a 5 amp resettable fuse. Let's pop it in to our fuse holder. Oh, look, light immediately comes on. Brilliant, because our wire is no longer touching the dashboard, but we're going over some bumps. We're going over some bumps again. It's going to touch. It's going to touch. And it's done exactly the same job as the wire fuse has done. It detected that more than 5 amps was going through because this wire had made a shortcut, a short circuit, straight back to the battery. And it's cut the circuit. This no longer works. It's not going to melt the wiring, which is always the fear. If you didn't have the fuse, or if you had too big a fuse, it would melt the wiring, may cause a fire. So, I'd have to change this fuse. No, I no longer have to change a fuse. I think, it's just a glitch. Ooh, press the clicker, comes back on. Think, it was a one-off thing, kidding myself. Go over another bump. And there you go, clicked out again. So I investigate, I find this dodgy piece of wiring underneath the dashboard, pull it out, now everything's good, and I'm away again. And I've not used any more fuses because I've got a resettable fuse. So this is a fabulous little diagnostic tool because you can try stuff again and again and again and see what's happening. Now, I'm not a professional auto electrician, and they will tell you, of course, but it's not really the done thing to just keep trying stuff and see if it blows a fuse. Reset, reset, reset. You investigate. You use a multimeter to find out where the short circuit is. But if you're in a bind, that is going to sort you out because you can try stuff, reset, try stuff, reset. These are not hugely expensive, but obviously they're a lot more expensive than a standard wire fuse, and they can be obtained in all manner of amperages. So the next thing that's spinning through our minds is, why don't we just replace all the fuses in our car with these? Well, there's two, maybe three reasons why that's not the best idea. Let's start with, where's my blown fuse? There he is. There's the blown fuse. There's the trippable fuse. As you can see, it's taller, which means you might not necessarily be able to close the lids on some cars on their little fuse boxes. Not the end of the world, but doesn't keep things OE. And of course, you know, it's essential to have this extra space for the mechanism to work inside. So there's no getting around that. So that's one reason maybe you're not going to swap out everything for these. Another is, The fusible links are available in a huge range of sizes, including some really odd ones like 3 amp, etc. These are going to be more in a standard set. Somebody's had to go to the trouble tooling up. They're going to make all the standard sizes. They're not going to make the weird and wonderfuls. They are going to cost you measurement in pounds rather than pence that you would pay for these things. So there is a certain investment, and if you do drive a car like the XK8 or 308, you know you've got 3-4 fuse boxes. There's a hell of a lot of fuses in there. It's a reasonable investment in these things. Plus, you won't be able to get all of your lids back on in the conventional manner. You can definitely jerry-rig it. Next is it really a good idea to make it so that every fault on your car can be reset? It's actually quite good practice to have the fuse blow and cause you to think a little bit about what you're doing and consider where the fault is before just going reset, reset, reset. You get a bit blasé, I would say. It's a bit like being good at computer games, and you can do the Nürburgring in 8 minutes on PlayStation. But I can give you the fastest car in the world. You may not be able to do it in 8 minutes for real. And the difference is PlayStation has a reset button. When you get it wrong, you just press reset. When you ditch the car, you may die. And it changes your actions. So if you've got something where you're going to keep blowing them, it makes you think a little harder about what you're doing. So, what's my opinion? My opinion is these are fantastic. And I have a set of them in an array of sizes. And this is part of my emergency toolkit, because I know if I get a fault out in the field, I will try to resolve the fault. I will investigate, and then if I replace the fuse, because I think I've now cured it with one of these, I only need one spare fuse in order to be able to carry on checking the fault. So my recommendation, keep these as your spares. If your car has spare fuse locations, use these in those spare fuse locations, or keep them in your toolkit, because you'll be able to basically test your theories multiple times with these, rather than running out of fuses and then doing silly stuff like stealing a larger fuse from a different holder, turning off other thing. You know where it goes. Fabulous, fabulous little gadgets. I'm going to put a link in the description below. I hope you like this. I was made up when I found these late last year, and I just haven't got round to sharing them. I think they're a brilliant idea to have in your emergency toolkit. So I hope you enjoyed that, and it does lead on to a future video where I'm putting together and actually making the perfect Jaguar XK8 toolbox to keep in the car. Earlier models had a toolkit with them. I'm really miffed that you don't get that on the XK8. So rather than buy a toolkit from an earlier car like a XJ6 and then adapt it, I'm going to build the perfect toolkit with a few extra toys that is great for having for roadside events in your XK8. But obviously you could adapt the same theory for any car of your choice. So a quick spin around the workshop so you know what's going on. Regular followers of the channel will know that at the moment there's quite a lot of effort going into this thing. Olive, the 1979 Volkswagen T2 camper van, which is structurally rather sound. I've had to weld up the cargo floor, admittedly, but the interior was literally degrading into Weetabix That might be a local gag, I'm not sure. So chipboard dissolving basically, but that's moving along nicely and we're getting back to rebuild, but it does mean that the garage is somewhat cramped at the moment as I'm dealing with wood and vinyl and all those sorts of good things. So lots of things going on in here. Still got some tidying up to do from previous powder coating experiments. If we just pop our heads out of the door for a moment, we got Betsy, the T4, and she needs a little bit of attention. So I want to do new wheels and tyres. The tyres are good condition, bad because of age. They're starting to crack, and I don't want to change the tyres until I change the wheels, so that's a little challenge ahead of us. Plus she's got an MOT coming up, so some adventures to be had there. We've got Purdy, the XK8, and Purdy is living outdoors for a bit, so she's feeling a little less loved than normal. She normally has a rather cosseted life, but she's a proper car, she gets used, so outdoors is not the end of the world. If in the distance here you can see Yogi. Yogi's the Jeep Cherokee, and Yogi is going really well, and he's going to take me off to South Wales later tonight. And there at the end is the Navara, my regular drive for work, which is looking absolutely filthy. The shed is also somewhat of a mess, and that's because I'm using it for doing trimming, using a workbench. Lots of vinyl trim, lots of ripping old trim off of hardboard and plywood, and they're just overrun. I've got two fridges on the go, as you know, because I didn't know which one I was going to be able to fix. Both of them working perfectly now, by the way, so good repairs. And I've got the tractor at the back there, which is in need of a good charge up and some slime put in its tyres, so I can get it out and do some mowing. And that's Olive's battery on charge, getting ready to go back in.